Good evening and welcome to Trendz Live on SABC News, Channel 404 with myself, Nkosazana Dambuza. It's another exciting episode, jam-packed with all things arts, culture and music. Now make sure to interact with us throughout the show at Trendz on SABC. Now July is Nelson Mandela Month, celebrated here at home and abroad to honor the life and legacy of the late statesman. Tata Madiba showed heroism through his selfless and dedicated acts, risking his life for the equality of all and fighting to bring liberty and justice for his people. The statesman also lived an interesting life outside of politics. Did you know that in his youth he enjoyed boxing and long-distance running? Madiba had a great sense of humor too, and to unpack all of that and more, I am joined by Razia Saleh, research and archivist from the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and SABC foreign editor Sophie Mogana. Welcome to Trendz Live, ladies. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Now, I'm a young person, so I'm excited to know from people who've actually met the late Tata Madiba, you know. And I know, Razia, you had an interesting relationship with him outside of the work environment. Please tell us, how was he?
Madiba was quite a warm person, and as you said, he had a good sense of humor. But I think his public persona, he always kept up a jolly face. So he was easy to get along, but he did have his moments, especially as he got older, when little things would irritate him.
Oh, irritating. Yeah. I can't imagine Tata Madiba being irritated. But what sort of things irritated, you know, the icon that we know?
I think if someone, you know, like if they said they were going to speak to him for 5 minutes and now they're going on and on, he would lose patience. So, yeah, so get to the point. And the one thing that he was quite a stickler for was punctuality. So if people were like late, it would annoy him most, yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense because he was a lawyer by profession, you know. And I'm going to come to you, Ma'am Sophie. You've worked and interacted with Tata in your line of work. Tell me, how was this? What perception did you get from him?
Well, I want to talk about Madiba, a human being. I mean, I had a very good relationship with Tata. I was like the daughter or the grandchild. And particularly at times when we were traveling, you know, when he was going to the countryside where he had projects with business, where he built a school or a clinic, and now it's official handover. So we will wake up early in the morning. In fact, the day before, I will always receive a call from Madiba or Zelda saying, tomorrow you must be at Waterkloof Air Force Base at 6 because we'll be flying to Eastern Cape or Free State. So I will arrive at Waterkloof winter time. It's cold, and I'll get into this Falcon 500. I'll sit at the back and take a blanket and sleep. And when he got in, the first thing, where is Sophie? So, and I'll pretend as if I'm tired because I don't know what am I going to say to him.
Yeah.
So, but then they will call me and say, no, Pap, Tata want to speak to you, and then we'll chat and then have coffee and all of that. So he was such a warm person. Secondly, during the media briefing, when I was not there, it was very difficult to start a media briefing or press conference because he would often call his staff and say, has Sophie arrived?
Oh.
If I'm not there, no, let's wait for her. And when I've arrived, then when he comes in the room, when he saw me beaming, hello, Sophie, are you fine? Then happy, and we'll continue with work. But also, at times, he would invite me to Kunu, the countryside. I've attended many birthday parties there. I remember the other time when he was celebrating 80 years. I was there, and he was at the kraal. you know, because it was also a traditional ceremony for one of his grandson, Gaddafi.
Yeah.
So we arrived late. Then I had to walk to the kraal,
Yeah.
and he was in a kumbi. And when he saw me, he stopped the car, and they had to stop, and he was happy. And then he started saying, no, you must come at the house. I'll ask Grasha to prepare a meal for you.
Oh.
And of course, I went home, and it was very nice. And the next day during the party, the real party,
Yeah.
he insisted that I must sit next to him at the table. And I kept saying to one of my colleagues, Mwiponi Malfane, from Media House, the newspaper, hey man, I don't want to go and sit at the first table. And Mwiponi kept saying, go and sit next to Tata. So he was that kind of a person. Our relationship was quite
Ma'am Sophie,
warm.
I'm jealous. You clearly had a very special place in Tata Madiba's heart.
Yes,
that is so sweet.
When we went to Geneva, you know, when South Africa had to do the last presentation for the 2010 World Cup bid in Geneva, where the announcement was going to be made, I had to go because the team, Safa and everybody were saying, because Madiba is going, you must go. And after the announcement, I was at the back entrance where he was going to walk out after the announcement. And I was very fortunate. When he saw me, he was happy, we've won. And then he uttered those famous words, now I can go to my grave. He was talking to me. So we were very, very close.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Razia, I want to bring you into the conversation and let's talk fashion. This is a very trendy show after all. We often saw Tata Madiba rocking glasses, cool hats, you know, trendy things. What do you think informed his dress code?
I think after he was released in 1990, he wore those suits, and I think he felt very stifled because for 27 years he wore prison clothes. And, you know, if you see photos of him in the 1950s, he wore bespoke suits with a handkerchief in the pocket, with a fancy hairstyle, you know, with a middle line. So he was a very fashionable person. But I think after his release, he wanted to be comfortable. And South African weather doesn't lend itself to three-piece suits. So we mostly have warm weather rather than cold Northern Hemisphere weather. So I think he just felt very comfortable. And then when he was given these shirts, I think he just fell in love with them and started wearing it as his first choice of clothing.
Yeah. And do you think that he was a real boxer, or did he just enjoy punching a bag? You know, some of us just enjoy punching a bag.
So I think in, you know, pre his prison, he would go and spar and box, but it was more of a health exercise thing than a serious boxer. I think he does say that he enjoyed the discipline of boxing, but he never boxed in a serious way, so neither professional matches or amateurish matches, but he would see it as a form of exercise. And he was quite concerned about his health, even from a young age. So even in prison, he would wake up early, and after prison, you would hear stories that he would wake up at 4 a.m. and then exercise either in his hotel room, or if he's living here, he would be running around this, you know, walking the streets of Houghton, and his security and tail would have to follow him early in the morning.
It's true what they say, great leaders do prioritize fitness and exercise. And clearly Tata Madiba did just exactly that. Ma'am Sophie, I want to talk about Tata Madiba receiving a Nobel Prize award, you know, a Nobel Peace Prize rather. How do you think he felt about this in his private moment, outside of the eyes of the world?
Well, you know, when I spoke to him about this, he told me that he had to do it. Whatever he was doing, there was a reason. He felt that at that moment, the country was at a very critical point, and you needed every effort to ensure that you unite South Africans, and we worked towards a new dispensation. And therefore, he had to swallow his pride to say, I will go with Ditlak and receive this award. Because I'm doing it for the nation. This is a clear demonstration that moving forward, we have to unite, we have to work together. Even though I don't share the same principle, particularly political ideology, and perhaps this is a man who led a very evil system, particularly in the 80s and the 90s, just before elections. You know, the system was very, very brutal.
Yeah.
But Madiba took that conscious decision. It was not a popular decision, particularly from the black majority, because they felt that you can't have the former president who sacrificed his life in prison fighting for justice, standing there with someone who played a role in also being part of the system that did oppress the black majority. But Madiba, typical Madiba, he used to take decisions that were very questionable to some, particularly those who fought for the liberation, but he had to do it. I mean, you look at his staff. When he got in, he did make changes here and there, but he decided to keep some of the people who were working for the previous government in the presidency, and therefore reaching out. And that was Madiba.
Very controversial at times, but a wise man. Right? He knows why he does the things that he does. And Mom Sophie, I also want to talk about the funny side of Tata Madiba. You obviously experienced some funny moments, maybe behind the scenes, behind the cameras, that we didn't get to experience. What were some of those?
Wine. He didn't drink. And therefore, at times, he would, the face changing when he had to drink something bitter. And you know, so this, the other issue, the love for children. Oh, Madiba, I don't know what to say. I remember one time he requested me to bring my children. And my little one was around 4 years. And the other one, the sister, I think she was 15, and the brother was already at varsity. So he decided to focus on this little one, the boy. And he asked him, what is your name? And my son said, I'm Tato. And then he said, you know, I have a friend. My friend is Tato Motlana. He was 3 or 4. He didn't forget that. One day we were driving in the car, and there was this bulletin, breaking news, Dr. Tato Motlana has died. And my son jumped and said, oh, what is Madiba going to do? His friend is dead now. Ooh, I'm also going to die now. I said, why? I said, no, the Tatos are dying, man. So, you know, but because Madiba was so careful, and he made him aware that he does understand the name Tato. He even is having a strong relationship with Dr. Tato Motlana. So it's little things such as those that you would say, thank you, Madiba, and thank you, because going forward, my children, they did adopt certain principles in relation to how Madiba viewed life and conducted himself, but also their love for education.
Oh, what an absolutely amazing human being.
He was.
That we got to call our own.
But the good thing is that much as he was this amazing human being, he was very clear that he is not perfect. He is not a Messiah. And he always reminded people that I am an ordinary person who's pursuing for excellence and trying to do my bit, but I am not a Messiah.
Absolutely. And just to wrap it up now, ladies, what would you think would be Tata Madiba's message to the youth of today? Razi, I'll start with you.
I think education. Madiba was very, very strong on being educated. So go to school, make sure you study, go to the best of your ability. If you can, go and study even further. So I think he'd say, you know, make sure you study. Make sure you study. Yes.
And Mom Sophie, what do you think he'd say?
In this challenging world, I think Madiba, something that he was passionate about is education, as she pointed out. And I think in the midst of all these trials and tribulations and the wars, poverty, unemployment, continue to pursue for excellence, education, education, and education.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today. He indeed was a person of great character and charisma outside of politics. We've seen a new side of Madiba now through your eyes and experiences. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
As Tata Madiba once said, there can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return. Now, we visited a trendy and popular barbershop in the East Rand Mall to see how they are doing their bit to continue Tata Mandela's legacy of giving back.
They may be responsible for many celebrity snazzy and stylish haircuts. And a visit to this barbershop may have convinced me that barbers here are actually responsible for Tata Madiba's long walk line or Madiba's haircut. But in fact, they're not. They are trendsetters in creating Madiba Haircut and even enhancing it a little bit to fit in with modern times. Men and women working at this establishment continue to touch lives of different community members.
We have training centers right around South Africa that upskills, because we're all about upskilling the community, creating jobs. So for our 67 minutes on Mandela Day, we gave 67 haircuts, and we're still continuing. For the next 2 weeks, we'll visit different communities by giving haircuts.
But now, let's understand this. Do people still go for the Madiba haircut?
Yes, we still have customers coming in asking for. It's mainly I think the line is more famous, but the haircut as well. But because we're in a new generation, we had to, change. We had to improve the haircut. So currently we do a fade with a line. So Mandela had a line right in the center of his head. So the customers call it the Walk to Freedom line, or some customers call it the Madiba line. But I don't think that's really what a line means. I think a line means that it's right in the middle because Mandela was trying to show the country that we are togetherness, it's equality. That's why it's right in the middle, so it's equal on both sides. Wow. So, but now our new generation, the guys want it closer on the other side or closer on the other side because they believe that taking pictures, they have a good side and a bad side. So if my good side is on my right hand side, I'll have the line closer to the right hand side. Giving back is very important, especially with the skill I was given or with the talent I was given. It's, by cutting someone's hair, you make them feel good. So that's why as a brand we cut a lot of kids because we feel like if we cut a kid, it makes him feel good and it brings back his confidence. So it will help in schools. So in my life, I believe that with my skill and my talent, there's a lot of lives we can change by just a haircut. My memory about Mandela is his fashion, his taste in fashion. He always had the nice shirts, the color blocking shirts, Yeah. So unfortunately I didn't get a chance to meet him. I would love to meet Mandela, but I think that's what I remember about Mandela. I would rock a Nelson Mandela shirt. It's the fashion is going back to the old days, similar to the haircuts. We're going back to the afros. We're going back to or not afro, but back in the day we had perms, we had, but now we're doing more natural afros, upgraded.
Speaking of afros,
I had to stop this gentleman here. He was just passing and I was intrigued by his hair. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and you? How are you?
I'm great. You have an afro. Why is that?
I got some inspiration from our late grandpas and grandmothers. So, yeah, just from there to this. So I just bring back the 60s to the now. There was this time I wanted maybe to dye my hair white to resemble him, but
I've always had Mandela line. I've always had that as like my trend setting hairline. But you know what, 2023, new me, new dreams, new goals. So I decided to, you know, let's redefine things, you know. Madiba was such a man of vision. He, you know, he envisioned a greater South Africa for all. One thing that I'd always take to heart is, you know, the statements he believed that education is the key, you know, to success.
Now, we have a lot more for you tonight. Stay tuned. I'll see you after the break. Nelson Mandela had a great love for children. In May 2002, Tata said that each of us as citizens has a role to play in creating a better world for our children. Now, this quote resonates with NGO Pick Me Up, that has dedicated themselves to serving needy children through unique projects. You see, they identified unrefined musical talent and not only hone it, but they use the proceeds from performances for a good cause. And in studio, we are joined by co-founder and director of Pick Me Up to tell us more about this amazing Sharing is Caring venture. Thank you so much for joining us, Rosine Adams. How are you?
Good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Well, listen, what you do is absolutely amazing, and I understand that you scout basically for musical talents through open mic sessions. That's very interesting. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so we host open mic sessions weekly, where we invite artists to come through, and we basically find our artists through that. We watch them on stage, we watch their crowd engagement, and we then give them big opportunities.
That's awesome. So when you're looking for this talent, what are some of the key elements that you're looking for, and who's the judge of it?
So, look, none of us are professional talent scouts, but we look at the crowd engagement, we look at the artist's desire to want to be an artist. It's an event by artists for artists, so we look for authenticity, and a great voice helps as well.
I mean, of course, that's what it's all about, yeah. Right? And now once you've identified these candidates, you then ask them to prepare a 45-minute set for the listening room. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So the listening room is our biggest event. It is a fundraiser. And what we do is we give the artist a bigger stage, a bigger audience, a chance to get seen, and to help build their own followings.
Oh, and can you tell us a little bit more about the stories of some of the achievers that you've brought through your initiative?
I think our biggest achievements need to be told on the side of the kids that we help. Mm-hmm. We've had several soccer tournaments that we've hosted over the last 2 years. Where we've helped 4 orphanages and children's homes just bring their kids out of the orphanage, put them in a different setting, let them have a good time. Our philosophy is we give adults a good time so we can give the kids a good time.
Absolutely.
And right now we have an initiative that we're raising funds for a play called Noko Goes to School. And we are raising funds to take kids from orphanages to go see this production that is put together by one of our brand ambassadors, Del Rey.
Now, Tata Madiba emphasized the importance of building and creating a better future for our children. In what ways does your initiative help children?
So our initiative is called the Ronald Kenneth Webb Storytelling Initiative. And our ethos is that storytelling will give kids confidence and motivation to speak up, to be themselves through any medium. It could be through music, it could be through theater, even through sports.
And where can those who wish to either help financially or in other means find you?
Well, I think the easiest place is social media. You can find us at PMU_ENT on Instagram or PMU_foundation.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I understand that actually one of the people that you've brought through your initiative will be performing with us today. So I'm excited for that.
I'm excited to watch it too.
You know, thank you for what you're doing in creating and building the best future possible for the youth of South Africa. Amazing work.
Thank you for having us.
Now, Tarryn Coltman has grown from this very initiative. As an up-and-coming artist, she has been releasing music since 2017 and has collaborated with many well-known artists. Her future plans include becoming a music therapist and a household name. Now, she's here at studio to give us a glimpse of what she can do. Let's hear it for Tarryn. Have you ever thought about what you want to get out of your travels? We usually plan quick trips to the breathtaking locations on our bucket list, sometimes even take those frantic tours to see everything the destination has to offer. Today, just take a step back, slow down, and allow Trendz live producer Asanda Zondi to remind you of the importance of authentic travel.
The trend of slow travel has become increasingly popular over the past years. However, through COVID-19, it's accelerated immensely and has almost become a new norm without people even realizing. Traveling slower involves transitioning from materialistic and consumerist luxury to wanting purposeful experiences and creating meaningful moments.
Last week I told you about the private jets, right? Today I'm trying to plug you in. I want you to travel in luxury on a train. When Hugh Masekela spoke about the choo-choo train, he did not imagine this.
The standards are incredibly high. We have clients traveling with us from all over the world, and they have become very accustomed to the finer things in life. You know, for everybody, luxury means something different, but for me, luxury means pleasure. You know, and pleasure can come in many different ways, in the comfort of your suite, to the food and beverages you're offered, the excursions that the guests go on when they're traveling with us. You know, we have to meet very high expectations. It's definitely about an experience. Look, train travel is either something you did as a child, perhaps it's something you did a lot growing up, you know, depending on the country that you live in. I think for most South Africans, we all used to travel by train around the country. So I feel like that sort of interest in train travel is there for a lot of people. You know, but we also benefit from operating on a continent that is so beautiful. And every single African country we travel through is so different from one another. So our clients are choosing to travel with us, firstly, because they want to come to Africa. Secondly, there might be train enthusiasts already, but more often than not, they're not train enthusiasts. They're just clients who are interested in seeing more about the countries we travel through. And there's no better way to see a country than by train, because you get to go through parts of a country that cars can't even reach. So we travel through 10 African countries, ranging from, of course, beautiful South Africa, of course, to Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. We go through Mozambique, Swaziland, and even as far north as obviously Zambia, Tanzania. And we recently have been traveling through the DRC and Angola as well. So those are just, every country is so different from one another. So we're very lucky because we get to go to these countries and think, well, what do people want to see when they're going through these countries? Is it the game? Is it there's something historic to visit? Is there something cultural to visit? So for us to be able to put these sort of tailor-made experiences together, we're really lucky.
I was looking at the websites and all the images. My goodness. Everything is beautiful in there. It's like, I don't know, a 5-star hotel, actually. What am I going to see right now? Where do we find the thing that makes it different, stand out?
Obviously, from a service perspective and a product perspective, we've had to ensure that it is like being in a 5-star hotel on wheels. So every modern amenity that you'd expect in a 5-star hotel, you will be getting in our suites.
Just like any other job, luxury train travel needs staff that understand the ins and outs of every aspect of the train, but also of silver service, as well as the challenges of overseeing guests and managing expectations.
I have to be able to do a little bit of everything, but my biggest job is to get the train safely from point A to point B wherever we're going all over Africa. So, yeah, I have to look after from the guests to the staff and the operations, which is a big part of the business. Yeah? You got a certain sort of mentality to enjoy traveling, and we travel a lot, and it's great fun. We go to places that a lot of people never even heard of, and it's quite a privilege, really.
What is it that you see from the guests that makes you excited and be like, okay, this is a good career choice. I love what I do.
Look, at the end of the trip, when you see guests getting off and they got all smiles, and on our longer trips, 2-week trips and so on, people getting off crying, they don't want to leave the train, they had such a good time. That makes everything worthwhile, because on the trip things go wrong, and you got to continuously juggle a whole bunch of balls to keep everything running smoothly. But at the end of the day, when they get off and they go back home and they're happy, they've had a good experience, spread the word, and people come visit South Africa because of that.
As the saying goes, in life it's not about where you go, it's about who you travel with.
To travel with your partner is wonderful. You're not going to find a more romantic experience because you have so much quiet time, just the two of you, which is so rare nowadays. But then equally, if you get to travel with a group of friends, you are going to have so much fun, because you are getting to enjoy these beautiful spaces together, see incredible things together, have lots to drink, lots to eat, chats. It's just really a social environment as well. And then lastly, to travel with your family, we have many multi-generational families that travel together, and that's also so incredibly special, because for a lot of the guests coming from all over the world, they're never probably going to have an experience like that again.
Poetry is a fantastic tool to capturing the imagination. It's no wonder poets are often called wordsmiths, while poet Zama Madinana has creatively cultivated thinking processes through the written and spoken word. He even recently released a book that addresses the sometimes complicated topic of liberation. And on Trendz, Zama joins us to discuss his work. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Puteunjani.
And thank you for having me.
Now, poetry is a beautiful form of expression. When did you realize that you had this gift that you could put on pen and paper too?
The word has always been my thing, I started writing poetry at a very young age, like in my teens. Even though it wasn't serious then, it was me just playing around with the words, trying to charm beautiful girls at school, up until I discovered black voices like Bafika Kwala, Don Matera. That's when I started to realize the power of poetry.
Yeah.
That's when I began to understand my role as a poet in the society. Good to know this thing is not just for entertainment.
Yeah.
So it is actually for educating and conscientizing people. So I started to dig deeper, I discovered other black voices in the continent, like Tambuzo Marachere in Zimbabwe, Ben Ogri in Nigeria. I discovered literary magazines and journals, Then I started sending my material to these magazines.
So what kind of a poet are you, and what topics do you address?
I write about a lot of things, but I write mostly about love, my personal experiences, as well as socio-political issues.
You recently released a book titled 94 that explores liberation. What is this book about, and what was the objective of releasing it?
Oh, okay. 94, I'm so excited about this project. It is my first full-length poetry collection.
Yeah.
So it encompasses a whole lot of things, like love, hope, load shedding, fees must fall, socio-economic issues, the economy. I'm not sure if the economy of this country is slowly growing or collapsing. Racism is still one of the biggest challenges that we have in this country.
And very, very quickly, where can we get your book?
The book, for now you can order it straight from me. On my socials, you can DM me.
What are your socials?
It is Zama Instagram, it's Zama Madinana, all small letters. And then Facebook is Zama Madinana as well.
Thank you so much for spreading wisdom through your words. We can't wait to hear your poem.
Thank you so much.
As difficult as it is, I have to wrap the show. It's been lovely having you with us this evening. Make sure to tune in again next week, same time, same place on SABC News, channel 404. Now, I'll leave you with the captivating, liberating words of writer and poet Zama Madinana. Good night.
Sharpen your mental spears. Sharpen your mental spears, son of many sons. Revisit your arsenal of dreams and escape the muddy streams of oppression. Let the wings and the winds of your mind carry you to Freedom Station, to heal the wounds of Flakplas and Sharpeville. Sharpen your mental spears. Sharpen your mental spears and drown your fears in the oceans of black consciousness. When they camouflage in a forest of corruption and greed. When tortured hopes sing broken songs of freedom. Be a torch in these dark streets of leadership. Yeah.
Chef Wandi Mabaso, known for his culinary expertise and creative flair, has always been fascinated by the intersection of food and art. His passion for cooking and showcasing his South African heritage through his dishes is the driving force behind the foundation. On the other hand, visual artist Azil Langa infuses his artistic vision into this project, bringing in a new perspective and adding a touch of the fine art to the culinary experience.
The newly launched Mabaso Langa Foundation, founded by renowned chef Wandi Mabaso and visual artist Azil Langa, is a unique and innovative project that combines the world of art with the culinary arts. The showcase, titled "Some Call It Africa, We Call It Home," is an artistic expression resulting in a one-of-a-kind experience that engages multiple senses.
The concept started really about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. When I first met Azil, we were at a studio or a gallery where I was invited by a friend through the French embassy. And you know, I was a big fan of his work, and he was a big fan of what I do as well. and we thought, how can we collaborate together? And from then, we literally started creating desserts that were candles, and he took this candle and he was painting with it, or finishing off his painting, smoke in front of guests, and guests were intrigued, you know. And this was during the COVID times, and what we actually named it was we were creating these candles. 1,000 candles were dedicated to everybody that we've lost during COVID.
What we did with Chef was we first looked at pieces that tells our stories from where we come from to where we are, and how we're inspired by everything, including our environment. So this year is titled Hope. So Hope is basically, as you can see, is a mother with a golden duke, which represents a queen. So an African queen, they put in dukes. So the silhouette of a gun represents emotions and protection. So you can see here on the side, there's a child that you can barely see. So the protection that the mother have over a child was interpreted in the form of a meal. And how now, if you look at her expression, is very calm. This piece here is titled As We Wait. It was a diptych from a triptych that we had. So it was a triptych, so we had 2 pieces showcased, but those 2 pieces, Chef reinterpreted them in a form of a meal. So what he did was he looked at the title, he looked at the series, and the message that the artwork is conveying. So the piece, this one is titled As We Wait, as part of Young, Black and Gifted. So we looked at also our journey as young Africans and influenced by our surrounding. So that's why you see the young man carrying a home with a bag, and also with this flowers beneath his feet. So with the gold jacket, that resembles, if you look at the patterns of the jacket, it represents the marks and patterns of African prints. So with that, what we did is we showcase how we travel the world. And as we traveled, we never unpack because of how we were raised and where we come from. It's uncomfortable. So the bag, as we travel, the bag is always packed. But we need to come back. We managed to come back, and we looked beneath our feet. We looked at what we have. Where we are in our country, we have it all. The main course, which was interestingly challenging, is titled The African Last Supper. So we used aboma. So we wanted it to be really authentic.
The Last Supper, what he didn't mention is that it's an idea that was over a year ago.
Yeah.
Which transformed from one thing to another, and I think I can put my hand up for that, for not painting it, but for the concept. Simply because I was always intrigued by Da Vinci. I was always intrigued with art per se. So growing up, and even in my adulthood, I researched and watched documentaries and stuff about, you know, Renaissance art, your Michelangelos, your Da Vincis, and how they shaped the world, and then to your Picassos. And I was always intrigued by the Last Supper, especially being a chef. And the fact also that the Last Supper is starting to disappear, you know, it's slowly disappearing. That's how old it is, or it wasn't painted on the right material or whatever reason. It always intrigued me, and I always thought about what would a South African Last Supper, or like a Soweto Last Supper, or a township Last Supper, as we know it growing up. For me, I think it's really, really the showstopper. No, it was a lot of work, but I think it's worth it.
Singer-songwriter Tarryn Coltman started taking part in international choir competitions in high school already. She then went off to study music technology, solidifying her love for expressing herself through songwriting and her voice. Little did she know that Pick Me Up Foundation would someday boost her on her musical journey. She joins us to discuss her love for music. Welcome, Tarryn, to Trendz Live.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here today. Now, can we talk about your journey journey with Pick Me Up. Where did it all start?
So a good friend of mine is also involved in the Pick Me Up open mics, and she asked me to attend one of the open mics, and I was like, oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And when I got there, it was such a embracing atmosphere, and I just enjoyed it so much. And so they invited me to one of the listening rooms, which is a bigger event that they host. And I mean, ever since then, I've been in love with just going there and just playing to my heart's content and just being myself in my music.
Talking about being yourself, what is it that they liked about you, and how did you feel about being chosen by them?
I hope they like my voice. And yeah, I think my voice, and it was just, I think with the atmosphere, it's just such a warming atmosphere where it's so easy for you to be yourself. So I really enjoyed my music, and I enjoyed being there, and then they invited me over.
Look, I'll tell you, I'm pretty sure they loved your voice. I'll confirm that for you. Now, when did you realize that music is your calling in life?
I think from a very young age. So I've been singing for as long as I can remember and been professionally trained since high school. And when I went off to tertiary, I studied music technology and just found this passion for songwriting. And that just morphed into this big, I don't know, passion, drug almost, that I just had to foster and grow as a little baby. And now I would say that my passions are just beyond what I could imagine and where I've gotten so far.
So you're currently writing and performing your own songs. What sort of themes do you tend to write about?
So mostly cliches. So a lot of love songs, a lot of heartbreak songs, which is a trend.
Yeah.
And but lately I've been finding myself looking into the deeper meanings of life and what deeper relations we have with each other as just people walking by and experiencing life together.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now I'm just looking at life through a different lens and seeing that there's so much more beauty to life than just relationships and being heartbroken.
Absolutely. And you also are looking into going into music therapy, outside of performing and spreading those lovely messages on stage. What does music therapy look like? What is being a music therapist?
So music therapist is basically healing through music. So it's your normal standard therapy, but using, instead of, if it was speech therapy, instead of speaking, you'd use the music as a way of communicating emotions and feelings. And so working through every trauma maybe, or a situation that you're having in life just to build your self-esteem and give yourself purpose, and to bring you to self-realization, basically, that you are worth something.
Look, Taryn, you certainly are going places, and soon you'll be performing at the Listening Room. But where else can people find your work?
So you can find all my work on Spotify and major platforms under Tarryn Coltman. And I have a website, tarryncoltman.com, and on Instagram at TarrynT33.
And just very lastly, what songs have you released so far?
I've released a couple of songs. I have an EP out called Starcrust, which is one of the songs that I just sang. And also I released a single called Wrong to Love. But I have a lot of collaborations that I've worked with other people as well.
And how do you feel about your proceeds being given to charity through your work?
I am really passionate about helping others and making others feel that they have a space for them to be safe and for them to flourish. So it's a thrill to be a part of an organization like this and to help others, even though I'm just singing.
And what makes the guitar special? Because not a lot of artists do play instruments.
I think I just picked it up and then it went from there, and my voice and my guitar skills just morphed into one, and I became one with my guitar.
Absolutely. I'm jealous. I've always wanted to play guitar, by the way. And you play it so gently, so beautifully.
Thank you so
I can't wait to see you perform once again. Please do serenade us.
Feeling the raindrops on my skin. All I wanna do is fit in your arms tonight. Wish we could be this close. In those times when I miss you the most, never let me go.
As difficult as it is, I have to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place on SABC News, channel 404. From me and the rest of the team, it's good night and God bless.